I'm so glad that Paramount was smart enough to move the series away from the clutches of Michael Bay, because the last two Transformers movies that have come out, Bumblebee and Transformers Rise of the Beast, have been really, really good. Several Transformers fans have told me that this is going to be a soft reboot, not a prequel anymore. And so, because of that, I'm happy, because that means that the other Michael Bay movies are not going to get in the way of what they can do now going forward with the Transformers franchise. They can actually reopen stories that they've already done in the past, or ideas, and revisit them with a new set of eyeballs, and that's going to be great for Transformers fans. So on this video, we're going to be discussing what's in the future for Transformers movies. Now, myself and Laserkid already dropped the video here on World of Geekdom about the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover. We talked about what we wanted to see, what they could do, just bounce around ideas. This is going to be similar, but it's going to be about what the next solo Transformers movie is going to be. So we're going to talk about that here and what they could do. Should they take and borrow ideas from the comics, from the old show, from the Beast Wars shows? There's a lot of material. There's Japanese shows. There's a lot of material they can adapt into movies. So almost an endless amount. So let me go ahead and reintroduce Laserkid. What's up?
Hey, excited to talk about some Transformers.
Yes, it's always fun. So, let's talk about it. Transformers, the Rise of the Beast. We talked about this already. Good movie, set up some future events. Now we have a lot to pull from. Unicron was fixed. Maybe not entirely, but close enough. Megatron has not been introduced yet. And I keep thinking to myself, like, maybe they should reintroduce Megatron. Maybe they should do Predaking. And I was just thinking, like, what can they do for the next solo Transformers movie? If Megatron comes back and he's classic 80s Megatron voiced by Frank Welker, I'll be happy. They might not do that, but I'll be happy. It might confuse people who don't know it's a reboot, but that's the safest bet to go. Besides Megatron, is there any other villain you want to see on the big screen that impresses you from the other material?
There's a whole host of villains they could play with. I think it's important that they set up Megatron. We talked about in the crossover video concept about, probably doing Starscream first and then have Megatron show up there. And I think of him the way I think of MCU Thanos. You want to set him up. You want to put him in the background as this looming, menacing threat that his subordinates are showing up, and we're hearing about him, and then he's gonna hit.
Okay. Well, what about Unicron? What about with Unicron?
Unicron, you can do the same thing, but even greater. But I think Unicron needs to stay away for a while. Especially if they do stuff based on the '86 film. If they decide to pull in, Hot Rod, Rodimus Prime, you want to push that out there a bit.
Yeah, right. If they actually kill Optimus on the big screen, I wonder how fans are going to react to it. So, who else do you think would be a good villain, rebooting wise? Like, we talked about Megatron. You're thinking like Starscream and some of those guys, his minions. But like, who do you think would be a great main villain for the next one?
I would honestly go with somebody like Shockwave.
Okay.
Because he's got a very interesting personality you can play from, both in the comics and the cartoon, where he's practically two different, almost opposing characters. They could try and mix those together a little bit, because in the G1 cartoon, Shockwave's like the super loyalist to Megatron, whereas in the comics, he's this conniving, backstabbing guy. You could kind of play that off. You could almost do a Jekyll and Hyde with him if you wanted to.
Right. What about Scorponok? Remember him?
Scorponok could be very interesting. There's a whole bunch of different versions of that character. But Scorponok typically is a rival of Megatron, so that could definitely be a thing. You could also play off with the Insecticons, because similarly, they sometimes help Megatron, sometimes fight him, and that could be another thing. That could also play against the Rise of the Beasts. Speaking of the Rise of the Beasts, we can also literally just throw the Predacons out.
Yeah, because Predaking, do the Predacons, and then have the Predaking be the final boss of the movie, I mean.
You could certainly do that. Predaking... you mean like the Transformers Prime Predaking, where he's a Predacon? Yeah, that would work.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, again, they can borrow from all
the original
kinds
Predaking is just a Decepticon, like Devastator that's just got like, imagine evil Dinobots that combine.
Well, I love Devastator. That's something I thought that they, with the dangling balls in the movie, I didn't like the way they portrayed him. As a kid,
I was not a fan of their live action portrayal of him, but I would love to see a better one.
yeah, especially from this creative team. No, dude, I loved Devastator as a kid. Like, I never had the toy, but I remember the commercials for Devastator. I was like, that's the one I want. That's the one I want.
Oh
Because I
yeah,
like the
no,
combining
I
mechs.
had a single Constructicon as a kid, and then later, like on one of their many reissues, for the hardcore, the Transformers Classics Devastator is the one I have, which is not the best version, but it's not bad.
Right, right, right. What about see, there's a lot. Okay, well, you tell me some of your names that you would like to see besides the ones we already named.
Besides the one we already named, ooh, that's gonna be tough because we went through my you went through my quick list there, but you could always go with some of the human villains. There's Professor Arkeville from G1 who tries to do stuff with mind control to try and take over as the
Hell,
world. It's kind of like a
that's a good idea for
Dr.
the GI
Wily.
Joe crossover.
You could do that for the GI Joe crossover, absolutely.
Right.
You could always play around with Sentinel Prime from the third film, but just kind of actually do him right.
I don't know, man.
Where you
Leonard
have an
Leonard
Autobot
Nimoy was great. Leonard Nimoy was great in that movie. That's
Leonard
the one.
Nimoy was amazing. I'm not going against the voice acting.
Right.
But you could do him where you actually have a legitimate progression from hero to villain, rather than just I'm evil now. Why? Because.
Yeah, yeah, just because. Yeah, the writing in
Because
those
the
movies.
story demands it. Like, you could have him start off as a force of good, with the heroes, and then he just kind of gets slowly more and more, like, pissed off at probably the lack of focus on Cybertron, and he's like, well, we don't need these humans. Who cares about these humans? We got to save Cybertron, and slowly drive him into villainy there. That would be an interesting trick.
I actually kind of hope that they reboot Quintessa because in the fifth movie she was, it just wasn't that great.
Quintessa is a unique concept from there, but you could always do something with the Quintessons for sure.
Right.
Which originate from the G1 cartoon. The Quintessons are you've seen them if you've seen the A6 movie. They're the guys that doing the court hearing.
Yes.
The guilty or innocent, guilty. Those guys.
Hey, you could do some great scenes with them. Now, when it comes
they're the creators of the Transformers. Actually, they made them to be slaves.
That should be like a multi-film. That's like a multi-film storyline, I think.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Now, when it comes to like story, okay, so I like the idea of building up Megatron for like a possible third movie or fourth movie. Probably not the next one. That's fine. But when it comes to story, okay, we've also got, now with Rise of the Beast, we've got a lot of Beast War stuff in there now. So what kind of storylines from either the old show, the newer shows, Beast Wars, the comics, what kind of storyline do you think they could take and adapt or maybe even mix in with other stories that would make a decent movie plot?
My first answer, which I mentioned last time, is always going to be the Dinobot story. Just with the Dinobots, because that's fan favorite, classic stuff. They kind of act as a bridge between Autobot and Maximal.
Yeah, they're animals.
They have kind of ties to humans. You could do a lot with the Dinobots, and there's a million different stories with them. There's their creation story. There's their rebellion where they joined the Decepticons briefly. All kinds of shit.
Okay. Yeah. What else would you like to see?
Beyond that, you could do a lot with a space bridge that connects Earth to Cybertron. They kind of played with that in that third film, but I'd like to see it actually done accurately. You could do stuff with the Insecticons. They have their rebellions. In the G1 cartoon, it's one of the few times you see Megatron and Optimus Prime team up against something, because they're just like, no, you guys are annoying.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where, like, again, that I like that idea, but if we're gonna get the Megatron Optimus team up,
that would be something you might do later on. You're right.
yeah, because you can build up Megatron as Thanos, but at the same time, like, I kind of want this idea where Megatron. This is me being an '80s baby. I like the idea of Megatron almost dying in every movie, but he escapes, which they didn't really do it like the way I wanted them to do it in the old Transformer series. But I like the old one, as in like the live action
Oh no,
Michael
it makes
Bay
sense.
movies.
Like, Megatron would fall into lava and quote unquote die, but then he'd be fine in the next episode. So yeah, you could
I don't
totally
know
do
about
something
falling
like
into
that.
lava, but yeah, something like that where
I
you
mean,
think
that
he's
I
dead.
legitimately happened in the
No, I know it
cartoon.
did. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that,
And
like,
then he's just fine. He's just like, nah, I'm fine. It's fine. How are you?
I'm
You
okay.
could also do the War Dawn story, especially because they're doing a soft reboot here, which is turning more hard because people are actually, glomming onto this, which is great.
You're turning more hard, bro, after you've seen that last
Oh
movie.
yeah. But it would be really cool to see the origin for Optimus Prime, for Megatron, for all of these things. You could easily put a whole movie into that War Dawn story. It's a famous episode from season 2.
So you're saying a
Uh,
prequel.
Yeah, like where you do a storyline and you don't necessarily do it all in the past. You could go back and forth and just kind of connect it to the current events.
Right, like what they did at the beginning of the new movie where they showed something from the past and then move forward to the present.
Exactly.
Makes perfect sense.
The other big thing that you could do is you could bring in the Predacons.
I thought we were going to
Because
see him in this movie. I really did.
I did too, actually. I did too. But because we didn't, that seems like a foregone conclusion.
So that's the most likely thing they're going to do in the next one.
That would make a lot of sense. It would also give them an excuse to give us a Megatron very quickly, because the Beast Wars Megatron is named after Megatron in the same way Optimus Prime was named after Optimus Prime. We could get the Beast Wars Megatron and have him lampshade the real Megatron, who then later shows up and is like, no, let me show you how it's done.
I think I love that idea. I think that's what they should do. Like, honest to God, I think that's what they should do. I think, you know what? That's what they should do. You have the Beast Wars, and I thought about this, but I didn't want to say anything until you said it. The Beast Wars Megatron shows up, he gives them trouble, they win, and then the mid-credit scene, the real Megatron shows up. That's teased for the next movie.
Yeah, well, and there's something definitely, you want a MacGuffin they can play with. You mentioned last time. There's a MacGuffin you can play with. You bring in the Predacons. They lampshaded the idea that they're from the future and the past at the same time, which is actually true. There's a storyline in Beast Wars involving the Golden Disc that are records of the Autobot Decepticon War and how everything in the past went, but they're stuck in the past. So it's actually a foretelling. You can use it to predict the future because you're living in the past now. We could have the Golden Disc that have a record of the future in this timeline, and Autobots, Decepticons, Maximals, Predacons fighting over this thing, trying to get an edge on trying to use it to predict the future.
You know what they could do? You just gave me a great idea. They could actually have the Golden Disc be the Michael Bay movies, and then they say we have to change it, and that's the official soft reboot. Yeah, the Golden Disc will show scenes from the first 7 Transformers, and then have them change the timeline. Because if they do something like that, it's yes, it is kind of what DC's doing with Flash, where this movie is like being used as a way to soft reboot the DC universe under James Gunn, and still not totally disrespect the previous movies. And I feel like they could do that here where, yes, the Michael Bay films have problems, but 1 and 3 are pretty decent, I would say. And there are fans of those movies, despite them not being great. But they could still have those events take place. But once they get the Golden Disc and they change the timeline, and I know someone's going to say something like, well, if they change the timeline, wouldn't the discs change too? Yeah, but of course, that's time paradoxes. You're going to always have that problem. I said that in my review for Indiana Jones. Time travel stuff is very difficult to do because you're always going to have mind-numbing explanations for things. Most of the time, anyways.
The end of the Golden Disc storyline in Beast Wars is the Golden Discs were destroyed. So you could play off that too. Yeah, they changed, but then they get destroyed, and now we don't know what the future is anymore.
Yeah, and I like that. And that again, that actually plays into the soft reboot. I think that's exactly what they should do. I think that's literally what they should do. And I don't know if they're going to do it, but
that would be a great way to introduce the character Dinobot from Beast Wars, who's absolutely a fan favorite, who starts off as a Predacon, turns Maximal, and is one of the central figures dealing with the Golden Discs. You could absolutely play off that. And, I mean, his quintessential episode. I mean, it won an Emmy, and it's where he dies.
It actually
And
won an Emmy?
It did.
I never
because
knew
it's
that.
good.
I
It's a
never
really
knew
good
Transformers
episode.
won an Emmy, dude. I never knew that. I swear.
Beast Wars did.
Well, it's still Transformers.
The
I'm saying any
episode
Transformers
that
show.
Dinobot died in. Absolutely, it did.
No, I'm just
And,
surprised I've never heard of that until now.
He's kind of, well, I mean, it's a really strong episode. He ultimately sacrifices himself to save the early humans because Beast Wars Megatron's going to kill them to prevent humans from helping the Autobots, and ultimately Dinobot, who's always looking for honor, decides that this is the line in the sand, and he dies saving humanity.
I like that. Dude. I think that's it. I think the golden disc is the way to go.
I think you're right. I think we found our next MacGuffin.
Not just that, the whole thing. That story is great. So it's already been critically acclaimed. You throw in the Puerto Rican guy from the last movie. You throw in Optimus into that storyline, and RC and whatever else they want to bring in. Maybe more Beast Wars characters. Don't want to overdo it, but bring in a little bit. Bring in maybe 2 or 3 more Beast Wars characters, and then maybe 2 or 3 like Decepticons or whatever you want, like whatever you want. Predacons, actually, that would be a good idea. Predacons, and then there you go. You tell that story, good to go. Then we have the Megatron mid-credit scene, and off to the races we go. And then from then on, it's just going to be a new timeline where you could explore things like Megatron becoming Galvatron the right way, or Rodimus being introduced, or something totally different. I mean, there's Transformers Armada. There's about 10,000 Transformers shows and IDW
endless.
stories. Yeah, it's endless. But I think that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, it's stories, not people. It's stories made by people who have gotten awards.
Absolutely.
So there you go. Anyways, y'all, thanks Laserkid for being here. Let me know in the comments what y'all think about this discussion and about what you want to see next in Transformers. I don't know. I mean, I feel like, to be honest with you, Laser, as much as I like the concept behind The Fallen, and I know some fans are going to want that back, the movie, I think, was so bad. Like, it was, and not just, I didn't even think it was as bad as other fans.
He's been replaced with Scourge. Scourge plays the way The Fallen was supposed to have been played. You don't need The Fallen when you've got Scourge.
I agree. I agree with that, but Scourge is dead now. Supposedly.
Oh, yes.
Supposedly. But, did we even warn him about the spoiler? It doesn't matter. No, but
sure,
spoiler alert, Scourge is dead.
Spoiler, a bad guy dies at the end of the movie.
If you haven't seen the movie yet, you should. But anyways.
If you haven't seen the movie yet, why are you looking at a discussion about
the next one? People do that sometimes, bro. It's weird. But yeah, see it if you haven't. So,
yeah, fantastic film.
Yeah, great movie.
But yeah, no, I
don't think The Fallen. I think that movie left the bad taste in too many people's mouths.
Oh yeah, so, it's definitely the dark spot on the Michael Bay films, which says a lot.
No, the dark spot's 4 and 5, dude. I think those are worse. Honestly, dude.
I like 4 more than I like 2. I never did see 5 though.
5 is the worst one, in my opinion. Some say 4 is the worst one. It's usually a tie between those two. But 2 was just 2 was like a clown show.
It was.
With the testicles. Don't even get me started. No, but yeah, that could work. Before we get out of here, any other storylines that you think would be fun to see live action? It doesn't have to be from Beast Wars, but I mean anything, or even if it is, anything you think that would work.
Especially because we have Unicron coming. You mentioned the Japanese cartoon. I would love to see some stuff from Beast Wars 2 where they have the evil energy that turns out to be part of Unicron. They kind of play with that in the Unicron trilogy series, Armada, Enertron, and Cybertron as well. But I'd love to have, Unicron always being in the background. Not necessarily in the foreground until it's time for him to, pop. But you can play with that.
Yeah, don't bring him in, like, as an effective villain until the time comes for him to be brought in as the villain. You kind of want him to be more like the Thanos, in that you don't want to overuse him.
You are right about that.
Yeah, Megatron could be built up for like 1 movie, I think, maybe 2, but they kind of already did that.
That's kind of what I meant. Like you want to build him up, but you don't want to build him up that hard. You want to build up Unicron that big.
Yeah, Unicron, you could literally do if Peter if we don't lose Peter Cullen, he is old, but you could literally do 7 more Transformers movies, literally, and build up to him that way, or you could just have him come in the next 2 or 3. But or if Peter Cullen does pass, and I hate to say that, maybe it is time to do the Rodimus story. But then some fans are going to complain about that because like they did back in '86.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, there are several people who have voiced Optimus Prime since that you could easily pull into if we did lose him.
But is it as good though?
They're not as good, but there are several who are very good. I mean, I was actually surprised they didn't get the original voice of Optimus Primal for this film for Optimus Primal. He would be fine to be Optimus Prime. He sounds different, but it's still good and it's classic.
It's classic, but does it sound enough so that people won't know the actor changed? That's the ultimate.
No, that would not be. If you want someone that sounds similar, that's gonna be a lot harder.
That's what I'm saying. That people are gonna, unless they figure out some way to, like, during the movie, Optimus had his voice box replaced. There's ways to do it, dude.
I mean, they've done that with Bumblebee, so
that's what I'm saying. Like, that's all that they could do, and it's gonna be sad if they do that. But it's been done before.
We definitely hope we don't have to worry about that for a long time.
Not just that, but also, I mean, dude, with the way AI's been going, this is controversial, but they could probably get some. And obviously, ironically enough, the show is about AI. That's the most ironic thing, because literally we're dealing with artificial intelligence here. We're even talking about Transformers, but I just feel like it's weirdly fitting. It's weirdly fitting.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank you for being here, Laserkid.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.